At the end of next week, a brand new Saw film comes out, and as most of us know, that means another absolutely bonkers twist. You know, where it's shot from like 100 different angles and there's a bunch of fast pans and snap zooms, all while Hello Zepp is playing in the background. That's all I can do without getting copyrighted. With the knowledge of Saw X taking place only weeks after the original film, will the twist just affect the entire timeline as we know it, or will it bring back fan favorite characters to carry the story onward? Well, let's get into it.
Well, sometimes that is better.
So getting right into this, in a brand new featurette that came out yesterday, producer Orrin Coles talks about how Saw X takes place only weeks after the original film. And as we already know, sometime before Saw 2. Although I believe most of the movie will take place there, I think we'll also flash forward to after the events of Saw 3D, a film that shares the same director as Saw X, Kevin Grudert. Now, it may have been a long time since you've seen Saw 3D, so let's do a little bit of a refresher. At the end of that film, Mark Hoffman gets captured by Dr. Gordon? What? He's secretly been a Jigsaw accomplice this entire time, cauterizing his foot stump against a hot pipe. He survived, and John Kramer took him under his wing. He helped out with various Saw traps across many of the sequels as well, which I find to be a very interesting detail. Gordon captures Mark Hoffman and throws him in the exact same bathroom from the first movie, where he's left to die. Game over! You know, that whole chestnut. So my theory right now is that Saw X is going to set up something for a twist that happens way after the events of that film into the future, where Mark Hoffman somehow escapes from the bathroom and then goes after Lawrence Gordon. Now, obviously, anyone can go on the internet and say, I think this is gonna happen in said movie, but let me back up all of this. But let's talk about some of the facts we do know about this film and the franchise that could support this theory. Costas Mandylor recently made a big post on Instagram talking about this new movie, although he has not yet been confirmed to return. Mandylor never made posts for Jigsaw or Spiral, two movies that he's not involved with regarding this franchise. Many fans also believe that Hoffman's voice can be heard at the beginning of the trailer. Let's roll the clip.
Of all the men to cheat, you picked John Kramer?
Now here's where this theory gets a little dicey. I personally have faith that Princess Bride star and reawakened doctor Cary Elwes could return for this film, considering he was actually hyped to come back for Saw 3D, as he was supposed to return in Saw 6. Unfortunately, he had to be written out of the story for Saw 6 due to a scheduling conflict. But talking about the reprisal of the character in Saw 3D, Elwes said at the time, I really have to thank the fans out there. Thank you for campaigning for me to return. They wanted to know what happened to Dr. Gordon, and so we thought that this being the last in the series, it was appropriate to bookend the series with answers for some of the questions about what happened to Dr. Gordon. Now, remember, at the time, Saw 3D was being marketed as the final chapter. The story would also entail basically the end of something, but also leaving the door open for more in the future. Well, that movie made a bunch of money, so 2 more movies happened after that. In fact, a 3rd comes out next week. So it's not really the final chapter until the money train stops rolling. And it looks like Saw X is probably gonna make a lot of dough. We'll get into that in a sec. Another facet to this twist that I know some of us don't want to hear is I believe it will somehow involve the character of Logan Nelson from Jigsaw, an often forgotten Jigsaw accomplice created by the same writers of Saw X. Not only do I see the character coming back because this film also shares the same writers as Jigsaw, but it would also add on to that Saw 3D twist we were talking about a second ago. As we learned from the commentary track on that film, director Kevin Grudert confirmed that the 2 other people in pig masks that capture Mark Hoffman are Brad and Ryan from the opening scene of Saw 3D. Remember that really weird trap in Saw 3D where you have the 2 guys in public and they have to saw their collective girlfriend in half? Yeah, so apparently those guys are working with Dr. Gordon. Do I want to see them return in the next film? I don't know. I mean, it's one of the goofiest traps we've ever seen across the entire Saw franchise. How the did they set that up in public and nobody noticed? And also, why does John Kramer, Mark Hoffman, whoever, care so much about this weird love triangle? The point being with all of this, though, is that the Jigsaw cult on Dr. Gordon's side is growing, while Mark Hoffman and Logan Nelson may team up to fight each other in some kind of weird civil war with Jigsaw accomplices. I could see Logan Nelson and Mark Hoffman teaming up because they're essentially the same character. They both were taken under the wing of John Kramer, but kind of threw out his ideology and just wanted to put people in traps because those people suck in their eyes and they just want revenge. Dr. Gordon, on the other hand, entirely embodies Jigsaw's philosophy unless they've kind of changed something for this new movie, which I don't really see why they would do. We even hear John Kramer say in Saw 3D that Dr. Gordon is his greatest asset. So to me, this clashing of philosophies would be a really fun way to introduce the 11th entry in the franchise if we end up getting that. We could see more games played in very different ways, kind of mixing all of the Saw movies together into one crazy ass human blender. Some of the characters in the film are just nasty people in the eyes of Mark Hoffman and Logan Nelson, who get placed in unescapable traps, while some of the other people need a reawakening from Dr. Gordon. Having totally different victims and MOs could lead the detectives down this weird trail of trying to figure out what the is happening here, just like most of the fans watching these movies. I'm sure some of you are watching this video right now and being like, what the is this guy talking about? And sure, the Saw franchise has gotten a little convoluted, but is it still fun? Well, I would say yes. The Saw franchise can be seen as very overwhelming, but this kind of rebirth for the franchise would bring it back to square one and make it simple again. The only thing you would really have to know moving forward is that there's two kinds of jigsaw killers out there and their philosophies clash with one another. We could find brand new characters to kill, nobody even connected to John Kramer's past anymore, because let's be honest, we've seen that in way too many movies at this point. It's my absolute favorite aspect to this twist, and it's something that I feel like the Saw franchise needs more than ever. Just like some of John Kramer's victims, I believe the Saw franchise needs a rebirth. Looking at the last two movies too, I feel like they were attempts to rebirth the franchise, so Saw X has got to get this right. Jigsaw tried to do that with Logan Nelson, Spiral tried to do that with William Shank. Let's see if this movie does it, but with most of these characters all intact somehow. With all of that being said, could we even see William Shank, played by Max Minghella, return for Saw X, and maybe he teams up with Dr. Gordon? It would be setting up like the Avengers for the Saw universe, but also, would you need to know all these things? Not really. Once again, it really just comes down to there's two different types of philosophy with jigsaw killers moving forward, and people are just gonna die in crazy traps. If you want to know more about the characters, well, you have all these other films to siphon through. But also, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can just enjoy a crazy Saw film moving forward. It's the best of both worlds if they spin it that way. But they can overcomplicate it too and make it unwatchable, so I hope they don't do that. What this all comes down to, though, is that Saw X needs to make money if it's going to be successful. And so far, it's projected to make somewhere in the ballpark of like 20-ish million this opening weekend, which is way better than what Spiral ended up doing in its opening weekend, only pulling in south of 9 million. Now, in all fairness, Spiral came out in the wake of a pandemic, so let's give that one a break. It's not the worst Saw movie, come on, those traps are pretty damn good. This is just my opinion on the Saw franchise. I really like that it's been going for this long, and it's really not as convoluted as most people make it out to be. I would love to see the Saw franchise go on for a long time, because besides story elements, there are also great gore and traps and kills throughout all of these movies. Even Saw 3D has a few good traps. The Chester Bennington trap, that was pretty good. His back is glued to a car seat and he has to rip the skin off of it. Ugh. As an absolute gorehound who can also appreciate the crazy story going on in the background here, I really love the Saw franchise. Let's see how far we can push this one. How do you guys feel about the Saw movies though? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all so much for listening to me ramble about Saw X. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror updates like this in the future. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to see this channel grow, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.